Hello, everyone. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Vanita Lambert, and I am the host of the show. And I have two very special guests with me today. I have Mr. Charles Bachman, and I also have Mr. John Inuzzi. They're going to be talking about reverse mortgages and different options. And before I get into my show, I always like to just offer my condolences to all of the folks in Ukraine that have lost people. Mm-hmm. I feel so bad about what's going on over there, and I see it in the news every day. I just hope and pray for world peace. So you all have my condolences. And I also just want to give Connecticut a shout out on the great job that we're doing with COVID. I'm walking around with no mask. Almost everybody's walking around without a mask.
Correct.
And it feels really, really good that we're getting back to some type of normalcy. So great job. Let's keep up the work. Again, I just want to introduce my guest, Charles Bachman.
Hello.
And Charles, thank you guys and John so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Actually, the story behind us is I met them through radio, because I also do a radio show with IMO Productions. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of like talking to the same market, because we want to talk to people that need our assistance and that need the information so that they could benefit from it. So that's how we met at IMO Productions. We also do a radio show together.
That's right, we have.
John is the producer. He does everything for Charles. I don't really have anybody do anything for me, but
you know what? I'll be here for you. Let me just say this.
Thank
John is
you,
great.
John.
John's a professional.
If I could, we very strategically picked first of all, the place that we wanted to broadcast. We wanted to reach Bridgeport. Aside from the fact that it's the most populous city in the state of Connecticut,
Correct.
We felt like the opportunity for people who could be impacted by the services that Mr. Bachman is offering could benefit the type of people. They live in Bridgeport, in the surrounding area. So we picked that particular station to be on. And then when we said, well, we got to find the right time to be on,
It was like, let's follow
I
Vanita.
went through and I listened to each program and I said, there it is. Vanita's show is what we want as our lead-in.
That's right.
I was very impressed with what your host does week in and week out. And I thought that there would be synergy, and after you joined us in studio, by God, I was right. There is synergy, and the message that we're all delivering is the same.
It's helped the seniors. And the funny thing about our show that we started in March, because I saw the writing on the wall, things were going to start to get worse, inflation was going to creep up, everything was going to become more expensive, and I said to John, this is the perfect time to start a show regarding these Heckham reverse mortgages. And now it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's in the Wall Street Journal, it's in the Daily News, it's in Forbes. It is everywhere now, because the seniors are really the ones that are getting strapped.
Right.
Because they won't get their cost of living increase from Social Security maybe next year.
I know.
But their bills are going up now. I shared with John a story last week. I'm sitting at a light, waiting to go through at home, and gas went up 10 cents. As I'm sitting there, waiting to gas up, gas went up a dime. Now, the guy that was ahead of me, I guess the pump worked for him, and he got the old price that was 10 cents less. But as I'm sitting there, I said, wow, this just cost me 10 cents more per gallon. It's crazy. But we're younger, and we'll work harder. But once you get to a certain age and you're in retirement with your pension and Social Security, those things just don't go up.
Exactly.
They just don't go up.
Exactly. So before we get into our show, I just want you guys to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, okay? Just a little bit.
Okay.
And how you got started in all this this business, this field.
We'll let John go first.
I mean, I've been in radio
since
1997. Wow. And my mentor had a seat on the National Association of Broadcasters. He was a real character. He just passed 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So the broadcasting industry in the New York metro area is still mourning it. His name was William O'Shaughnessy, and he owned a station right outside of the Bronx. It was called WVOX. And he had me intern Now, you know what intern means. That means that you work and don't get
And
paid.
you do not get paid.
However,
Everything.
However, it was one of these internships that, aside from the fact that I met my beautiful wife through the internship, she had the good sense to get out of radio, by the way.
So you got paid after all.
Big time. But this particular radio station allowed me to meet so many people like yourself and like Mr. Bachman, and people who were really doing work in the community, trying to make a difference. And one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I said, you know what, I'm going to continue doing this. And I've been very fortunate that I have consistently, over the last 25, 30 years, been in the communications business. I worked at Westwood One. We did the NBA broadcasts.
NBA,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. Well, it was nice except for the West Coast games, which meant I got home at like 2 in the morning, after the Clippers were done. But yeah, I've been in communications my whole life. I've never done anything else. And I'm very lucky. I have a beautiful daughter, 3 years old, so if I look tired, that's why. And the reason I'm sitting here is I used the services of Mr. Bachman when it was very important that we act quickly and snatch up an opportunity in Fairfield County. As you know, finding a home in Fairfield County right now, in New York, in Westchester, very, very difficult.
It's difficult.
So an opportunity presented itself, and I didn't know what I was going to do. Things needed to happen very quickly, and if you looked at the normal bullet points, it didn't make sense for us. And we sat down with this gentleman at our kitchen table, and we figured things out, and sure enough, everything did work out. So I said, whatever he needs, I'm here for him.
Awesome.
And then he had this idea to get this information out, and,
Here we sit.
This information is great. It's great information. So, Charles, tell us a little bit about yourself.
See, I've been in the mortgage industry now for 30 some odd years. It started for me as a second job. My cousin owned a mortgage banking company. I was at his house Memorial Day weekend, and my uncle said to Mike, he goes, "Why don't you give Charlie a job for the summer?" Mike said, "Okay." I showed up the next Wednesday, and Mike said, "Charlie, what are you doing here?" I said, "You gave me a job." He goes, "That's right, I did." And that was it. And, I had a year left to finish my degree at Pace University, so I went to school at night, worked during the day, finished the degree. And it was supposed to be a summer job, and I was going to be out, and I was pretty good at it, and I stayed. So here we are 35 years later. I manage a team for American Financial Network in White Plains. I've managed for credit unions, for banks. We've had our own brokerage company. So I've run the full gamut in the last 30 or 35 years. But I've really settled back on the reverse mortgage piece of it now, because a lot of seniors would like information on a reverse mortgage. The only place that they can find it is on TV, for the most part. They see those infomercials, and it leads them with more questions. And what happens is, most of these seniors will they'll get a CD, they'll get an email, and they'll be dealing with someone at a phone center 1,500 miles away from here. They want someone, as I did with John, to come to their house, either myself or someone from my team will come to their house and explain it to them over a cup of coffee, over a water, over something, and it makes the difference, and it makes the difference in what we do. And that's the way you sell when you're talking to people. They want to sit down and see you.
Yeah, that's what separates us, your business and mine, from everybody else. You can't call an 800 number back if you have a problem with something.
Correct.
So you want to sit down and look somebody in the eye. I tell people I sit at kitchen tables all day.
Me
I
too.
absolutely love what I do. I'm never going to retire.
Me neither.
Ever.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about it, and it gives me the opportunity to help people and to give back to people. And your business is exactly the same.
Yes.
And I learned a little bit about your business. So we want to try to clear up some of the misinformation that we hear on TV. Because I used to think, oh my goodness, reverse mortgages is the worst thing. And if you hear stories, other people's stories, and you hear, everything you hear on TV, and you don't have somebody like Mr. Bachman come and sit at your table, give you the information, and customize a plan for you, then it could be bad. So it's my understanding that back in the day, I guess when reverse mortgages first came out, you didn't have to qualify. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was,
And okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that is correct, and that caused a whole myriad of problems. The number one question that people ask us when they first start, will the bank take my house?
Right.
And the answer is no, we do not change the deed. When you are a reverse mortgage on your property, the only thing you're responsible to make payments are the taxes and the insurance.
Exactly.
The mortgage payment goes away while you have the reverse mortgage, but most people think that we're going to change the deed to the property and it goes in the
And
bank's
take their
name.
homes.
Right. The initial loans that were made in the 60s and the 70s, that probably did happen because it was in its infancy. The business is regulated by the federal government, by the FHA. There's counseling involved. There's a third-party counseling service that people do. So the seniors they're being handheld literally every step of the way. They talk to me first. We do a proposal. If it's something that they're interested with, we go ahead and do it. Then they do their counseling. Only after they do their counseling session and they get their counseling certificate can we go forward with the actual application.
Right.
So they've probably at that point spent 4 hours on this subject and really haven't applied with us directly yet.
Right. So I'm thinking some of the misinformation was in the beginning, there was no qualifications.
That is
you
correct.
didn't have to qualify.
That is correct.
And if you don't qualify for something and then you get into it, I do believe that would cause people, if you're not paying your insurance and your taxes, or say you don't have a job to earn enough money to pay, say your taxes are in Connecticut, it could be $1,000. So your taxes are $1,000
A month.
with the insurance altogether. My taxes on my house is right around there.
Right.
And, so you still have to have a job to pay your taxes or have the money. And then that, I believe, that is where the problems came in the early stages of the mortgages.
That's accurate.
Of the mortgage
That is
company.
accurate.
Because people did not have to qualify. And as a result, they didn't pay their
taxes
and insurance, and they lost their homes, not because of the reverse mortgage,
It's because
but because
they
they
didn't
didn't
pay
pay
their
their
taxes.
taxes
That's
and
what
their
happens
insurance,
mostly.
and they weren't qualified to do that.
That's correct.
And I'm asking. I don't know.
that is correct.
Because I'm
Yeah,
learning with you guys here. We're here to learn and to get information.
Most of our, most of the seniors that we're doing reverse mortgages for are retired, so they're getting a small pension, Social Security, and interest income, and obviously withdrawals on their IRA.
Interest income?
Yeah, and well,
There's a few getting that.
yeah, there's a few getting that, but I mean withdrawals from their IRA, to say.
Oh.
So and to qualify for the reverse, you're not really qualifying on the mortgage part of it to make the payment. You only have to qualify on what the taxes and the insurance are, which is a lot smaller number. So that's the portion that they qualify on. And there's a calculation that we make about the square footage of the house and how much the house needs to be maintained. But that's all part of the proposal process. And when people call me, the very first question is, are you 62? Are either you or your spouse 62 years old? Do you own your home? If yes, then we go on to the next thing. I ask them their date of birth. They can give me that information, and we kind of take a guesstimate of what the house value is, and we put it into the program, and it will give us a maximum loan amount that the senior will qualify for on the HECM mortgage. The whole process takes about 5 minutes,
Okay.
and we can figure that out immediately. We'll pay off their mortgage, we'll pay off their credit card bills, we'll get them a credit line if there's enough equity in the property. So, as John and I like to say on the radio show, it's collar room. I mean, everybody's getting
You're
squeezed
just
now.
putting money back into the house.
It's putting money back into your pocket, because statistically, in the last couple of months, I mean, people aren't making more money, but everything has gotten more expensive, and what you see statistically is that all this money that people are laying out that's not income is coming off their credit card bills. So people's credit card bill balances have skyrocketed in the last, in the last 60 days, since gas is up to $5 a barrel, and fuel cost and food costs. We went shopping last night. And it's the credit card balances that are going to start to choke people.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start to max out. And then it's another credit card, and
Then
that
you're
gets
gonna be
maxed
behind.
out. And it doesn't take
Yeah.
long. It doesn't take
It
long.
doesn't.
That's why for the senior, the HECM reverse mortgage is perfect. Congress instituted it. It came alive in the current state that it's in now, somewhere in the mid-'80s.
Tell the story about the roots of this particular loan. I thought
with the retiree?
I mean, the fact that it started to keep a beloved member of the community,
Yes.
in Maine, here in New England, in his home. He was a
football coach in town. He passed away, and and his widow was living in the house, and she really couldn't. I guess his pension was low enough, and then the town got together, and they went to the local savings bank and said, "Is there something that you can put together that could keep Miss Smith, shall we say, in her house?" So they created an annuity, essentially, and she was able to borrow. She was able to borrow against it, and that was pretty much. I believe that was in the '60s or the '70s. That was the first quote-unquote reverse mortgage idea that someone said, hey, this is not a bad idea. And she understood when she passed away that the house would get sold and the loan would be paid back. So that was the first one that I've found on record. And from there, local savings banks have made them, and then the government, and then the FHA got involved and said, this is a good idea. Let's codify this. Let's come up with a set of rules that seniors can have access to this program all throughout the country. So now it's administered by the government through FHA. There are guidelines set in place. And we do these loans in any state. The company I work for, we're licensed in every state. So if anyone's watching us or listening to us and saying, hey, I have an aunt or an uncle in Florida or the Carolinas or Texas or California or Jersey, one call and we can set up this reverse mortgage and do the proposal from someone right from my office, which is great.
You can get all of the information.
From one spot, from one person.
Exactly.
And if I may, we've learned over the last 8 weeks of doing this show and talking to people, we've talked to callers, and I've shared my own story. Time and money are the two things you don't want to run out of.
Correct.
And I've shared on the air my story, and I'll share it here, and that is that my grandfather built his home, as many Italian-American immigrants did back in the 40s and 50s, built his home with his own hands with his brothers. One was a mason, one was a plumber, construction. They all got together. They built the home that my mom was raised in. My grandfather expressed his interest in aging in place. That's all he wanted to do.
He did.
He waited a little too long to start the process because guess what? As his health started to fail, the money ran out. The process to get the HECM going takes a little time.
It took a little, to do the counseling.
And unfortunately, he passed in a nursing home. So
where he didn't want to be.
Where he did not want to be.
Most people do not want to be there.
You know, and we had I called my mom and got her on the air to explain the story because, when people are being skeptical about this particular product, about this particular loan, they have all these concerns. I wonder if they think, well, if we don't do this, what happens? Because, like I said, to see someone spend their last few days in a place they don't want to be, it's very hard to watch.
Yeah.
And on my end of the business, I see people spend their entire fortune that they worked for, their retirement.
How quick will they
exactly
drain that?
So I just think it's just so crucial that we give out this information. If you have the information, you can take advantage of it. We will customize it for each person. It's just there's no limit to this. So I have a couple of stories. Okay, if I was talking to someone on my Zoom this morning, and they gave me the story. Their mother is 85 years old, and she still works. Can you imagine that?
Good for her.
That means
it's hope for us all.
But the reason she's still working,
Okay,
the
here we go.
reason that she's still working is to pay her mortgage.
No.
That is not good.
No.
That is just not good.
That's so sad.
At 85, it's sad. So she's working to pay her mortgage, and she has 2 children. The 2 children does not want to they're in like their 50s, early 60s. They don't want to take their money and pay her mortgage. And then they don't want the house.
Oh, that would be.
So, every Friday morning we have a Zoom meeting on a certain subject, and this morning, coincidentally, it was on reverse mortgages.
Isn't that ironic?
And that is so, yeah. And then I told everybody, I was like, oh, I'm doing a show with my guys.
It's extremely timely.
With my mortgage guy.
It's extremely timely.
it's the stories behind this information that can save your life, that can generate, that you can live the kind of lifestyle you want to live, have security, you know, and just get the information. Nobody wants their mother to work until 85. Nobody wants to take their retirement money and pay their mortgage.
Correct.
And so she was introduced to a mortgage guy, and they sat down with her, and she did the reverse mortgage, and she's retired.
Yeah, she
You
stopped.
know? It's just
Oh, she did
it's
it.
just
Oh, that's great.
It's just unbelievable because she was only working to pay her mortgage, and now she pays her taxes and her insurance and
Right.
everything.
Well, as John and I say on the show often, I mean, if $1,000 a month, and sometimes $1,000 a month is $250 a week. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you don't have it, it's a lot. But that's the difference between living and just working in retirement,
And existing.
maybe having some collar room and being able to relax a little bit and enjoy your golden years at home. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of that 1,000 now is just going to get eaten up in extra interest expenses, which is the hard thing in gasoline and fuel.
Benita, you know better than anyone. What are the realities about how stifling the monthly cost for elder care could be? I mean, there are
Monthly
people
cost.
who may not understand how astronomical this could be.
Yes, you're right. So the monthly cost is enormous. If you need care in a nursing home, if you need 24-hour care in a nursing home, the average cost right now in the state of Connecticut is about $400 a day.
Wow.
So
That's like staying at the Ritz-Carlton.
Without room
every
service.
single day. So needless to say, if you don't have any type of plan in place, first of all, let me back up. You can get long-term care in a nursing home, assisted living facility, or at your house, depending on your situation. Okay? And if you're just growing old gracefully, then you have somebody come in and take care of that, which is still about at least 50 or 60 grand a year
Right.
on that. Assisted living facilities is probably about 80 a year. And then nursing homes are just outrageous, $400 a day on average. Some of them are more. So if you're young, if you have the equity in your home, what it is, you're just utilizing the equity in your
That's
home.
correct.
If you're not going to use it, I mean, leave it as a legacy for someone, and you're struggling, just ask yourself, do you want a better life?
And people do use the HECM mortgages to fund long-term care.
Okay, you keep saying HECM mortgages.
Okay.
What does that stand for? We don't understand
Okay, HECM
exactly what that is.
All right.
Professor Bachman.
The HECM stands
Don't throw
for-
these acronyms on
Okay,
us.
That's HECM is Home Equity Conversion Mortgage.
Okay.
HECM.
Okay.
HECM is the legal term. Reverse is kind of the slang that people kind of know it as. I mean, if you say HECM to someone, they're not really sure. We use it interchangeably, and I do all the time. But it's really it's a home equity conversion mortgage. Home HECM is HECM. That's the class. That's the technical term for it. Everyone on the street just calls it a reverse. And that's and that's where that comes from. But people do use them. They use them to fund long-term care. I mean, and that's on the application. Are you going to buy a long-term care product or an annuity? People use the equity to buy annuities.
Actually, you cannot use reverse mortgages for insurance purposes.
On long-term care?
Unless it's long-term care.
Yeah, all right,
You
long-term
cannot
care then.
buy life insurance and annuities, and that's my end of the business. So, you know, that's one thing you cannot do is buy an annuity or life insurance and things like that. But you
Okay.
can buy long-term care, which is what we all want at the end of our lives.
Right. And
So
people do-
I'm
and people
sorry.
do it.
I just want to make
Well,
sure
well,
we
thank you for
No,
get that
clarifying that.
information
That's-
out there.
and that's
Better
important.
This is a
Well,
reality show. We're not trying to hide anything. We just want to make sure you guys get all the information.
But our biggest thing is people, in fact, I've had, and I always do a follow-up, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month afterwards, and I say, how are things? And everyone always says, oh my gosh, what a difference a small amount of capital, sometimes
Can make.
a very insignificant amount, can make in someone's life, especially, I had a woman, we did one in Florida, she actually called into the show. We did it for her several years ago, and she said at the time everything was fine, her husband was healthy, and now he needs long-term care in the house. And she said on the air with John and I, if I didn't have the HECM in place, I wouldn't be able to pay for Ed's care.
Wow.
And it was not on the radar screen. This was 20, almost 3 years ago we did it. And she said if I didn't have the HECM in place, I wouldn't be able to pay for it now. And I wouldn't be able to qualify for it now.
Wow. And that's true. You know, you got to have the funds to do that. So, guys, I love this show. It goes so fast because we're so passionate about what we're talking about.
Wow.
We have about 1 minute left, but I want you to stay tuned on YouTube because we're going to have part 2 coming up right after this.
Very good.
Before we go, John, do you have any last words for this show?
Listen, I would just say that this is a service that you're providing, and I appreciate that you gave us the time to come on here and talk about this, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to talk about. Running out of money and getting old. These are not the easiest things to talk about.
You're right about that. Well
said.
said. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.